My name is Edgard Walls. My wife, Steffi, and I now live in a modest hotel room in Utah. We used to own a house, a charming little place tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. It's currently for sale, but no one seems to want it. And to be honest, I don't blame them. Most people sell their homes before moving. We didn't. We escaped. It started about 2 years after we moved in, but in truth, the house had always been strange. We inherited it shortly after my parents passed away, just a month apart. It was a painful coincidence, both deaths deemed natural, and since I was an only child, there was no dispute over the property. Steffi and I were renting a cramped apartment at the time, so the decision to move in felt right. The house had a quiet charm, with old wood floors that creaked underfoot, and the scent of aging paper in the air. It felt like the kind of place where we could grow old together. At first, everything was perfect, but almost immediately, small things began to happen. Sounds we couldn't explain, soft thuds in the night, whispers of movement when the house was still, doors that closed without a breeze. We dismissed it. Old houses make noise. We told ourselves it was probably just settling, but it escalated. One spring night, Steffi decided to sleep on the couch because our new mattress hadn't settled right. I stayed in bed. It was oddly cold for spring, but I managed to fall asleep until Steffi shook me awake. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Ed, you have to come. Something weird's happening in the dining room," she whispered, voice trembling. The sofa moved on its own, and there were scratching sounds at the window. "Something's out there." I tried to calm her, though my own nerves were fraying. Maybe it was a dream, or a mouse, maybe. "No, Ed, I felt it." The sofa lifted. I wasn't dreaming. Despite her fear, I convinced her we'd check the cameras in the morning. But something about that night was off. The air in the house felt heavy, as if it were holding its breath. I went to the dining room. The chill Steffi mentioned was there, sharp and sudden, like stepping into a walk-in freezer. I sat on the couch, trying to shake the unease. Sleep came, but not for long. I woke to a faint tugging on my shirt, like invisible fingers testing the fabric. My body jerked as I fell off the sofa, heart pounding. I ran back to the bedroom to find Steffi sound asleep. The room, warm, normal, as if none of it had happened. I didn't wake her. Instead, I grabbed a branch from the yard. Ridiculous, I know, like I could defend us from a ghost, and circled the house. I found nothing until I heard it again, a subtle, deliberate scratch at the window. I froze. Every hair on my body stood up. I ran to the front door, threw it open, and was met with silence. The neighborhood was still, peaceful, oblivious. I returned to the bedroom. Steffi stirred. "Did you find anything?" she asked. "No," I lied. "We'll check the recordings in the morning." She nodded and drifted off. I couldn't. The room felt wrong. The shadows stretched too long. The darkness felt crowded. That's when I noticed the bathroom light. The door was shut, but I could see a shadow moving behind it. Adrenaline spiked. Slowly, I grabbed the hockey stick we kept near the wardrobe and crept toward the door. My fingers were ice, my breath shallow, and then the door opened. Steffi stood there, brushing her teeth. She looked at me, confused. "Ed, why are you holding that?" My mouth went dry. If she was in the bathroom, who or what had been lying beside me just moments before? We didn't speak. We didn't have to. A shared terror passed between us like electricity. We grabbed the car keys and ran, barefoot, unthinking, out into the night. We slept in the car. At dawn, we returned. Everything looked untouched. But when we reviewed the security footage, we knew we could never stay. A dark, human-shaped figure appeared repeatedly on the videos, watching us through the windows, standing in corners, always just out of sight, always there. We packed our bags and moved to the hotel that same afternoon. The house is still up for sale. But some nights, even here in the hotel, Steffi swears she hears scratching at the windows. I never imagined I'd fall in love with a professional wrestler, especially when I barely even knew what WWE stood for. Wrestling was a vague concept to me. Some televised sport with flashy moves and larger-than-life characters. Nothing more. That's why what happened still feels like a surreal memory stitched together by fate. It began in the most ordinary of places. A cozy little cafe where I often went to sip café con leche and wrestle with my college homework. The place was crowded that day, every table taken. That's when he appeared. He was tall, muscular, and striking in a way that made the noise around us dim for a second. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, pointing to the only empty chair at my table. I nodded, and just like that, he sat across from me, quietly sipping his drink while I tried to stay focused. I didn't notice when he left, but when I got up to buy a muffin, the cashier told me it was already paid for, along with my energy drink. Bewildered, I returned to my table and saw a note folded under my coffee cup for someone who clearly works hard. Ivan. That's how it started. His name was Ivan. Our connection was instant, magnetic. Over time, I discovered that Ivan wasn't just any wrestler. He was an aspiring WWE competitor, fully immersed in that intense, chaotic world. At first, I felt like a fish out of water. The arenas, the violent spectacle, the overly confident, sometimes sleazy personalities. It all clashed with my quiet, bookish nature. But Ivan was different, gentle, humble, and impossibly kind. Then came the night of his first major fight. His opponent? A towering masked brute known only as a King Shango, a name whispered in hushed tones among wrestlers. A man whose matches were infamous not just for his brutality, but for what happened to those who faced him: sudden sickness, unexplained injuries, nightmares, paranoia. And then Ivan started to change. At first it was small things: loss of appetite, sharp abdominal pain. Then came the fevers, the cold sweats. He grew paler by the hour, writhing in pain, while doctors ran every test imaginable and found nothing. "We can't explain it," they said. "His vitals are normal." But I knew something was wrong, horribly wrong. One night, after Ivan had been sedated to ease his pain, I slipped away to the hospital's small prayer room, just a bare space with a flickering light and a simple cross. I sat there, praying desperately, when a man entered. He wore a priest's collar and had kind eyes. Without a word, he handed me a white flower and a candle. "Pray for him," he said softly. "What has been done to your boyfriend is not natural. His opponent, King Shango, has been known to curse those he cannot defeat with strength alone. This is not just a fight. It's a battle of will and spirit." My stomach turned. I didn't believe in witchcraft, not really. But what other explanation was there? I returned to Ivan's room and placed the flower on his pillow. I lit the candle beside his bed, and then I prayed, not just for him to recover, but for the darkness to be lifted, whatever it was. The next morning, the day of the fight, Ivan was too weak to stand. King Shango was declared the winner by default, but something strange happened. Ivan's condition began to improve immediately after the fight was cancelled. His fever broke, the pain dulled. By evening he was speaking again. He was himself. Later, when I told Ivan about the priest's warning, he grew quiet. He didn't roll his eyes or scoff. He just listened. And then he said something I'll never forget. "I don't want this life anymore." He left wrestling behind that week. Not out of fear, but clarity. The cost had been too high, the shadows too real. But our story doesn't end there. A month later, Ivan and I returned to the hospital to thank the priest. We asked about the chapel, the one I'd prayed in. The nurse gave us a puzzled look. "There's no chapel in this hospital," she said. "Just a meditation room. No clergy, no priests." The air went still. I knew what I'd seen, what I'd felt. That man, that presence, had brought peace in my darkest hour. To this day, I don't know if he was an angel, a ghost, or something else, but his candle burned through a curse and gave me back the man I loved. Now, years later, Ivan and I are married with 2 children. He teaches wrestling at a local gym and sells homes on the side. I've put my career on pause to raise our kids and build the peaceful life we both craved. But every time I pass that hospital, I look toward the room where I lit that candle and I whisper, "Thank you," because I believe in miracles now. And I believe something out there listened. I've been a doctor for nearly 2 decades now, but some memories never fade, especially the ones that defy logic. 15 years ago, fresh out of med school and hungry to prove myself, I took a job at a small hospital tucked away in a rural part of the county. It didn't take long to adjust. The staff was cordial, the patients kind, and the routines manageable. There were 4 other doctors on my shift, and we all answered to one person, Dr. Schneider, our iron-willed department head. Dr. Schneider was terrifying in the way only true perfectionists can be. Cold, meticulous, and nearly impossible to impress. Mistakes weren't tolerated. They were hunted. Like every rookie, I wanted to stand out, so I took on countless night shifts. Living alone and far from family made it easier. It was during those nights that I met Tanya. She was the youngest patient in the hospital when I arrived. A quiet little girl with big, curious eyes. She didn't have family visiting often, but she wandered the halls with a strange kind of freedom, talking softly to other patients, always alone. One night, while making my rounds, I heard whispers coming from room 201. It was almost 2 a.m. All patients should have been asleep. Curious, I followed the hushed voices and opened the door. There was Tanya, standing beside the bed of George a patient recovering from a major surgery. She turned and smiled at me like she'd been expecting me. "Hello, doctor." "Morgan," she said cheerfully. "Tanya, it's late. What are you doing here?" I asked gently. "I just came to say goodbye to George," she replied. George looked pale, more than usual. I assumed Tanya had startled him. I reassured him and promised to send Nurse Martha to check on him. Then I walked Tanya back to her room. The encounter didn't strike me as odd until the next day. I'd finished my shift around 4 a.m. and slept through the day. When I returned the following night, I passed by room 201 and noticed someone else in George's bed. "Where's George?" I asked a nurse in the hallway. "Oh, the patient in 201. He passed away yesterday," she said casually. "Heart attack." Dr. Owen signed the death certificate. My stomach dropped. Tanya Back said goodbye to George. Not good night. Brushing it off as coincidence, I went to check on her. She was calmly coloring on her bed. "Tanya, why did you say goodbye to George last night? Did you mean good night?" She hesitated, eyes darting toward someone over my shoulder. I turned. No one was there. A week later, I was doing another late round when I saw Tanya quietly exiting room 706, where a woman with a serious head injury had just been admitted. I walked in. "Oh, doctor," the patient said. "A sweet little girl was just here. Tanya, I think." I froze. "Did she say anything to you?" "Yes," she said, chuckling nervously. "She told me goodbye, though I think she meant good night. Weird, huh?" The woman died the next morning. At this point, I couldn't shake the pattern. Tanya was always there just before death. It happened 2 more times. The same soft goodbye, the same outcome. Eventually, I couldn't keep it to myself. I went to the reception desk. "Candy, how long has Tanya been here?" She looked confused. "Who's Tanya?" "The little girl. She wanders the halls at night." "ICU patient?" "Doctor. Morgan, we don't have any child patients admitted right now." My blood ran cold. "But I've been speaking to her every night," I insisted. "Check the records." Before she could answer, I heard a voice behind me. "Dr. Morgan, come with me." It was *Dr. Schneider. I followed her to her office, heart pounding. She sat down slowly, her face pale. "You saw her, didn't you?" she asked quietly. "Tanya, how did she look? Was she happy?" I stared at her, confused and horrified. "What's going on?" And then Dr. Schneider broke down. Through tears, she told me everything. A week before I joined, she had brought her daughter, Tanya, to the hospital. Her ex-husband was supposed to pick her up, but he never came. Tanya had wandered the halls while her mother worked, just like I'd seen her do. Then one day, Tanya fell from the 3rd floor to the 2nd. The hospital admitted her in critical condition, but she didn't survive. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. "She's still here," Dr. Schneider whispered. I thought I was going crazy. A nurse told me she'd seen her too. But now I believe it. She's saying goodbye to the dying. I worked at that hospital for 2 more years. I never saw Tanya again, but sometimes patients would mention a little girl visiting them during the night. They'd always smile and say she was sweet. None of them ever made it to the morning. It happened one cold winter night, as we drove home from spending the holidays with my wife Lillian's family. Our 6-year-old son, John, was curled up in the back seat with his favorite stuffed bear, and Lillian slept soundly beside me in the passenger seat. We were halfway home when I decided to take a shortcut, a quiet, deserted back road meant to shave time off the drive. Big mistake. The road stretched endlessly into the dark. No lights, no signs of life, just us and the hum of the engine. I was exhausted, fighting sleep with every mile. I tried the radio. Static, of course. Lillian shifted slightly in her sleep. John murmured something and turned over, clutching his blanket. I smiled briefly, envying their peace, but I had to stay awake. My eyes grew heavier. The sway of the car was hypnotic. I blinked slowly, once, twice, and then, just for a second, they shut completely. When I opened them again, a child stood in the middle of the road. I screamed and jerked the wheel. Tires screeched. The car spun slightly before slamming to a stop. My heart was hammering, hands glued to the wheel, knuckles white. Behind me, John screamed. Beside me, Lillian jolted awake. "What happened?" she gasped. I think I almost hit a kid," I stammered. I leapt out of the car. The freezing night air slapped my face. I scanned the road with dread in my chest, praying I hadn't hit anyone. But nothing. No child, no blood, no footprints, just empty road and dead grass. Silence. I walked farther, shining my phone's light around. Nothing. No houses, no woods, not even a tree, just open, endless land. I stood there, baffled. Had I imagined it? Was I just that tired? Then, movement. The headlights caught something in the distance. A flicker, a figure. I rushed toward it, but when I reached the spot, nothing. Chilled and shaken, I returned to the car. "Did you see anyone?" Lillian asked, her face pale. "No, there's no one out there." I lied. I got in, ready to leave, until I realized my keys were gone. My heart dropped. I patted my pockets, checked the seats, nothing. And then I saw them, lying in the road, right in front of the car. How the hell did they get there? I stepped out to retrieve them. As I bent down, something caught my eye. 2 eyes, staring at me from inside the driver's seat. My seat. I froze. Lillian and John sat still, unaware. I opened my mouth to scream, and the car started by itself. The engine roared, headlights blinding, and the vehicle lunged toward me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Just as it was about to hit me, everything went black. Then suddenly I was back in the driver's seat, heart racing, hands on the wheel, car swerving off the road. "Wake up!" Lillian was yelling. "You fell asleep." I shook my head, dazed. I'm fine. I'm okay. Let's just keep going." But something felt wrong. John was awake now, staring out the window. Then he said quietly, "Dad, did you see the boy too?" My blood turned to ice. "What boy, sweetheart?" "The boy with the red cap," he said, pointing ahead. He was standing right there. I looked. Nothing. My hands trembled on the wheel. "Probably just your imagination," I whispered, but I knew what I saw, and so did John. We kept driving. The road felt endless. The world around us faded into a bleak, colorless blur. I turned the radio on again, still static. Suddenly, the engine began sputtering. I looked at the gas gauge, empty. My stomach dropped. "We need a gas station, now." After what felt like forever, we saw one. A dimly lit, run-down place, straight out of a nightmare. Flickering neon lights, rusted pumps, no other cars. I pulled in. The pump was broken, of course. Frustrated, I ran into the store. It was dark, dusty, shelves nearly bare. I rang the bell at the counter. Nothing. "Hello?" I called out. A man appeared in an aisle, his back turned. He was stock still, like a mannequin. "Hey, I need help. We're out of gas." No response. "Hello?" I stepped closer. Clatter. I spun around. Nothing there. When I turned back, the man was gone. I stood alone in that silent store, and then from the shadows, the boy appeared. Same red cap, same lifeless stare. My knees buckled. I ran. Barreling out of the store, I jumped into the car. "We have to go, now!" I shouted. "What happened?" John asked, voice trembling. Before I could answer, he said, "It's the boy. He followed us." I turned to look. He was pointing out the window, and there, by the gas pumps, stood the boy in the red cap, watching us, eyes empty. I slammed the car into drive and tore down the road. In the rearview mirror, the boy stood motionless in the road, shrinking into the distance but never taking his eyes off us. We didn't stop until we reached the next city and found a motel. As we pulled into the lot, the engine sputtered one last time and died. We had made it by a miracle. That night, Lillian and John fell asleep fast, but I lay awake, haunted. When I told John the truth, he looked at me and said, "He comes to my dreams sometimes. We play." He smiled. "But I don't think he likes you, Dad." I never asked about the boy again. We never took that shortcut again, either. And I never drive at night. Nearly 30 years ago, in the mid-90s, my husband Stuart and I bought a secluded cabin deep in the Maine mountains. We'd first discovered it during our second wedding anniversary and fell instantly in love with the quiet beauty of the place. Towering pines, the whisper of wind through the woods, and a lake so still it felt like time had stopped. When we learned a local was selling their old family cabin, we didn't hesitate. It became our sacred escape from the noise and chaos of city life. We had no children, though we tried. It was always just the two of us, and that little cabin, surrounded by nothing but nature, became our world. Then, 10 years ago, Stuart was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer. He fought like hell, but lost the battle 8 years ago on a cold March morning. The grief was indescribable. My soul fractured that day. Before he passed, he made me promise never to sell the cabin. I didn't need to. That cabin was us, so I stayed. I left my job, my city home, everything, and retreated into the woods. For nearly a year, I lived alone with nothing but the trees, the lake, and Stuart's memory. The nearest village was a 40-minute drive down a rocky road Stuart and I had built together. No internet, no cell signal, just an old TV with a spotty signal and the occasional run into town for supplies. I became a hermit by choice, grieving in silence. Once while shopping in town, I called my sister. She joked, "Aren't you scared Stuart's ghost will show up?" I laughed and said honestly, that would be the best thing in the world. And in some strange way, I always felt him there. Not in a haunted way, but like a warmth in the cold, a presence when the wind rustled the trees, comforting, protective. Until that night, months had passed. I was healing, slowly. Then one quiet evening, as I sat by the fire with a book in hand, I heard a knock, faint. Then again, louder, more urgent. I paused, heart skipping. Wind? Wildlife? Still, I crept to the front door. Nothing. But just as I turned to go back inside, the door slammed open. A man stumbled in, filthy, disheveled, reeking of alcohol. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, scanned the cabin like he was searching for something. I froze. He lunged. We struggled. He pinned me to the sofa, his foul breath hot on my face. I fought, kicked, scratched, screamed. But he was bigger, stronger. He slapped me hard, then yanked a rope from his pocket and began tying my wrists. I begged, "Take anything. Just leave me." But he leaned close and growled, "What I want is right here." My blood turned to ice. He began tearing at my shirt, but then he stopped. His gaze shifted over my shoulder. His expression twisted from lust and cruelty to pure horror. His hands trembled. He stared, eyes wide, mouth slack. And then he screamed, a sound so primal it didn't sound human. He bolted from the cabin, crashing into the woods like something was chasing him. I slammed the broken door shut as best I could and grabbed Stuart's revolver from the bedside drawer. Drove to the village in a daze. The sheriff sent deputies to search. They found nothing. One officer stayed with me that night. 3 days later, the man's body was discovered floating in the lake, still wearing the same clothes. The coroner said he'd been dead for 3 days, drowned, which meant he died that very night. I should have felt horror, but all I felt was relief. I'll never know what he saw that scared him so badly, but deep down, I know. It was Stuart. 2 nights later, I had a dream. Stuart stood at the foot of my bed, smiling just like he used to. "Don't worry, my love," he said. "I'll always be here to protect you." I woke up crying. But for the first time in months, I felt safe. Eventually, I returned to the city. But I go back to the cabin every year. It's still my sanctuary. The windows are reinforced now. Security cameras guard every angle. But more than anything, I know Stuart is still there, my guardian in the shadows.
I'm still struggling to catch my breath from what happened last night. It's well past midnight now, and I'm sitting on my living room couch, staring at the locked windows and doors. I keep telling myself it was real, that I wasn't dreaming. But it all happened so fast, it's almost impossible to believe. I'm 25 years old, managing a McDonald's in Rio Grande City, Texas. A place so hot it feels like the air's been fried. The heat is relentless, suffocating even after the sun goes down. My little house, modest as it is, offers little relief unless I blast the AC. And let's be real, I can't always afford that. So on some nights, I open a window to let in whatever breeze I can get. I know it's not the safest idea, but the heat feels worse than the risk. Last night was like any other. I came home from my shift around midnight, microwaved some leftovers, and mindlessly scrolled through my phone. Exhaustion hit me hard. By 1 a.m., I turned off the lights and slipped into bed. I figured the breeze from the open window would keep things cool enough, and my budget was already stretched thin. I left the bedroom window cracked just a few inches. Then I drifted off, or at least I thought I did. I'm usually a heavy sleeper, so it takes a lot to wake me up. An alarm right by my ear, or the desperate need to pee. But last night, something jolted me awake. The red glow of my clock blinked at me from across the room. 3:01 a.m. I blinked, confused, trying to figure out why I was awake. I didn't feel thirsty or uncomfortable. No explanation until I heard it. A sound. At first, I thought it was just a creak in the house or my stomach, but after a second, it hit me. It was unmistakably human. A faint, disturbing sound, like someone passing gas, right there, in my room. My heart pounded, and a cold wave of dread washed over me. I turned my head, slow and steady, scanning the darkness. The only light came from my clock, barely enough to make anything out, but I could see it. There, on the other pillow, was a head, a man, older, maybe in his 70s. His mouth was slightly open as if he dozed off, but the rest of him was still. I froze, struggling to process what I was seeing. Who the hell was this man? How did he get into my bed? Was he there the whole time? My mind raced as I pieced it together. He must have slipped in through the window, the same window I'd left open in my half-conscious decision to escape the heat. I nearly screamed, but managed to choke it down, pressing my hand over my mouth to keep the terror from spilling out. I was paralyzed, afraid to move, fearing he would wake up and do something horrible. I couldn't just lie there. I couldn't wait for him to wake up, so I reached for my phone. My fingers fumbled, heart hammering against my ribs. I managed to grab it, slowly pulling the blanket off, inch by inch, trying not to make a sound. Every movement felt like it was echoing in the silence. Miraculously, he didn't stir. I set one foot on the floor, still holding my phone. Every breath was a fight. I tiptoed toward the door, the old wood creaking beneath my feet. My chest felt tight, my pulse racing. Was he awake yet? Was he coming after me? I reached the bathroom, locked myself inside, and dialed 911, my voice shaking as I explained the situation. The operator stayed calm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the man was already moving through the house, searching for me. I waited in a cold sweat for what felt like an eternity before I finally heard it. A knock at the door, loud, demanding. "Police, open up!" I ran to the door, shaking so badly I could barely hold the handle. The officers stepped inside, and I led them to the bedroom, keeping close behind one of them for protection. He flipped the light switch. My stomach dropped. The bed was empty. The covers were disheveled, but no man, no stranger, nothing. We searched the house. Every corner, every closet, nothing. The window was still open, but there was no sign of him. The officers reassured me, told me to keep my windows locked, and to call again if he came back, but my mind couldn't settle. They left. I stood there in the silence of my house, heart still racing, my thoughts tangled in confusion and fear. How had he gotten out without me hearing? Why would he choose my bed? I couldn't bring myself to go back to the bedroom. I grabbed a blanket, made a makeshift bed on the couch, and checked every window, every door, every closet, every possible entry point. It's been hours now, and sleep won't come. I'm still here, wide awake, too scared to even change into new clothes. The idea of lowering my guard, even for a moment, terrifies me. I keep wondering, why my house? Why my bed? What did he want? Was he watching me? The thought makes my skin crawl, like his eyes were on me the whole time. The wind outside rustles against the window, and every tap of a branch sends a fresh wave of panic through me. Is he out there, waiting for another chance? Or was he just a drifter, seeking shelter for the night? I don't know, but I can't shake the feeling that it's not over. He's still out there, watching, waiting, and all I can do is keep my windows locked, try to breathe, and pray that sleep will come without his silhouette invading my mind.